Yeah, welcome back to my classes. In my last videos, we have discussed about the properties of materials. Initially, we have discussed about the properties of concrete. Then I started the discussion about the reinforcement. We have seen what are the types of reinforcement, right? So now today what we will see is one of the most important characteristic of the steel, that is stress-strain relationship. Stress-strain relationship. Stress-strain relationship of steel. So in general I am using the word steel, but let us see of mild steel. So this is the mild steel stress-strain curve. Stress-strain curve. Fine. So what is here? What we are doing is on a steel bar. This is I am representing a steel bar. Okay. Load is applied. Okay. Load is applied and a curve is drawn between stress and strain. This is what we see when we draw a relationship between stress and strain of mild steel. Okay, we draw strain on x-axis and stress on y-axis because strain is an independent quantity, an independent parameter. What is strain? Change in dimension. It can be linear, it can be aerial, it can be volumetric. So when the load is applied, there will be change in the shape, right? There will be change in the dimension. So it is an independent parameter, so it is being drawn on the x-axis. Okay, now stress is force per unit area. It is dependent on strain. So whatever amount of deformation is taking place, to resist it, some stresses will be developed. So stress is a dependent parameter. So it is drawn on the y-axis. So when we draw the relationship between stress and strain, by applying the load on the steel bar, the relation looks like this. The graph we get will be like this. So let us study what are these. When the load is small, okay, the stress will be directly proportional to strain. That is, the relationship is linear. So that is represented between 0 to A. This is stress is directly proportional to strain. So this we are getting only when the loads applied are small. Okay. So here what it means is when you remove the load from A, the material regain its shape. That means between O to A, the material is elastic. When you remove its load at A point, the material will regain whatever deformation or whatever elongation has taken place, it will regain. So that is proportionality. It is within the proportion. So A is called as proportionality limit. A is called as proportionality limit. Okay. So within this, stress is directly proportional to strain, and it is given by a relationship which I will tell you in my later on. Okay, later on. Now A is called the proportionality limit. When the load is further increased, and a stress strain diagram is continued, we get a point B. Okay, so at B, stress is directly proportional to strain is not valid. It is no more linear. Some curve has taken place. It has become curve, but the material is still elastic. That means if you remove the load at point B, the material will regain its original shape. So up to B, the material is elastic, right? So this region is called elastic region. Okay, this is elastic region. Beyond B, it is plastic region. Beyond B, it is plastic region. Okay, so B is called as elastic limit. Point B is called as elastic limit. The material is elastic up to B. B is called elastic limit. Now you are further increasing the load. When the load is further increased, then deformation starts. Stress and strain when drawn, we get a point C where the material starts yielding. The material starts yielding. So C is called as upper yield point. C is called as upper yield point. So what is happening is here? What is happening is here? Deformation is starting. Okay? It is becoming plastic. When you remove the load at C, it will not come back to its original position. It has entered in plastic region. C is the upper yield point. It means it is the maximum load. You can draw this one. Okay? Like this. So what is this? This is stress. Stress is equal to load by area. So what is this? See, the maximum load at which yielding starts. At which yielding of material starts. Fine. So again you are increasing the load. For example, suppose initially it was 12, we got proportionality limit. At 15, we got elastic limit. It is just an example, just a number I am giving you. Fine. At 20, suppose 20 kilonewton, upper yield point has started. Now you are further increasing the load, say 25. Okay. So we find a point, falling point on the curve D. Okay. That point is called as lower yield point. Lower yield point. What it means is, it is the minimum load. It is the minimum load at which yielding continues. Yielding continues even without any increase in the load. If you are not going to increase any load after 25, even then yielding continues. Right? So that is why it is called as lower yield point. You are further increasing the load. It is a procedure, experimental procedure we are doing it. So if you further increase the load beyond 25, for example 40, then we get a point called E. Okay? E. So at this position, at E, if you further increase the stress after the point D, there will be a significant amount of deformation in the material. There will be a significant amount of deformation in the material, and curve will reach some ultimate point E. Okay? There will be some significant amount of deformation and the curve will reach a point E, and that E point is called as ultimate stress point. Ultimate stress point. So what is happening is here, the material will be there, it won't fail. The material will be in a deformed shape. It will be in a deformed position, deformed shape, but it will not fail. It will continue to exist. It will not fail. So that point is called as ultimate stress point. E is the ultimate stress point. At this load, the material will not fail. It will continue to be continue to take the stresses in the deformed shape, deformed shape, but it will not fail. So you are further increasing the load. Further, say 50 example, 50 kilonewton. Then the curve falls. The curve falls and there will be some point on this falling curve F. Okay? Right? So what happens is, if you further increase the load beyond E, the rod, if you further increase the load beyond E, the rod will undergo some local reduction. See, this is the rod. You are further increasing the load. So some local reduction like this. Some local reduction in the cross section of the material will take place. When you when you increase the load beyond E, there will be some reduction in the cross section of the material. Means you are just you are applying the tensile load beyond E, then the material becomes starts thinning. The material starts thinning. The bar becomes thin. You can see here. So it's reducing its cross section. Finally, at some point it will fail. That point is called as F point. So F is called as breaking point. F is called as breaking point. Okay, so these are the salient points of the stress strain curve of steel in general. Okay, stress in steel in general. Fine. So these are the salient points of this stress strain curve. When the load is small, the relationship between stress and strain is linear. Okay, up to which point it is A point. A point is called as proportionality limit. Then if you further increase the load, we get a point B, up to which the material is elastic, but it is not linear. The relationship is not linear. Since the material is elastic up to B, it is called as elastic limit. Okay, so up to B, the material property is elastic. Means if you remove the load, it will regain its shape. Then when you further increase the load, we get a point called upper yield point C. That means here yielding of the material starts. Okay, plastic region, the material has entered the plastic region. Means once deformation has occurred, it will not go back to its original shape. So the material has started yielding. So this point is called as upper yield point. That is the maximum load at which the yielding of the material starts. If you further increase the load beyond C, we get a point on the curve called D. That D is called as lower yield point. It is the minimum load at which yielding continues even without any increase in the load. Further going into the experiment, we have increased the load beyond D. Okay, when the load is further increased, then we get a point. We get a point on the curve called E. E is called as ultimate stress point. Means the material will not fail. Even after yielding starts, if you further increase the load, the material will not fail. The material will remain in its deformed shape. Okay, so E is called as ultimate stress point. Then beyond ultimate stress point, if you increase the load, then a point will come. The curve starts falling. The curve starts falling. In this falling portion, you get a point F, that is a breaking point. So what is happening beyond E? If you further increase the load, there will be a reduction in the cross-sectional area of the metal, that is steel. Okay, as you are pulling it with tensile force, so the thickness of the diameter keeps on shrinking. So somewhere it will fail. You can imagine the scene, right? So this is how we get these salient points. These salient points are very, very important to us. Okay, so we will get two derivations from this strain curve, stress strain curve, right? So what are those two derivations? First is modulus of elasticity. First is stress. Okay, some definitions we will see. What is stress? Stress is the ratio of force applied per unit area. Okay, whatever load you are applying per unit area, that is called as stress. Okay, so this is a very simple force by area, cross sectional area. Then the next definition you are encountering is strain. Okay, so when you suppose you are applying the tension in this direction, so there will be an elongation. If L0 is the original length, then L is the final length after the application of stress or force, then the change in length to the original length is called as the change in length to the original length is called as the strain. Okay, then we have the next is the next one is Hooke's law. Okay, Hooke's law is derived from this stress strain curve. Hooke's law is derived from stress strain curve. Okay, so you have seen within the proportionality limit, stress is directly proportional to strain. Stress is directly proportional to strain within elastic limit. This is your Hooke's law that already we have seen. Within this elastic limit, stress is directly proportional to strain. Then this relationship can be related with one constant, that is called as modulus of elasticity or Young's modulus of elasticity. So stress is directly proportional to strain. Okay, if you remove this and replace it by some constant, that is E into strain. So E is called as modulus of elasticity. So modulus of elasticity is the ratio of stress to strain. The modulus of elasticity is the ratio of stress to strain, right? It is the inherent property of the material. It is the property of the material, or it is the measure. It is a measure of the ability of the material to withstand the changes in length when undergo lengthwise tension. Fine. So this also we got it from this relationship, right? And also you have seen what is elasticity mean. Elasticity means the material, when the load is removed from the material, it will regain its shape. Plasticity means whatever deformation is taking place, that is permanent. Elasticity, the deformation is not permanent, it will come back to its original shape. Okay, so this is all about stress-strain relationship. We have seen the stress-strain curve for the mild steel. In the same way, we also have stress-strain curve for high-yield deformed bars, HYSD bars. Okay, high-yield strength deformed bars, and also we also have a stress-strain curve defining the relationship for concrete also. So those two curves and their salient points we will study in limit state method. Okay, now design philosophies of RCC. Okay, so what do you understand by the design philosophy? Okay, so that is what are you going to do in the design, right? So design of any RCC member comprised of two unknowns. The first thing is determining the concrete area B and D, and then determining the area of steel, right? This is what we will do when we say we are going to design a member. Okay, so first is we will decide the dimensions. To decide the dimensions. Okay, suppose it's a beam, then B and D. If it is a slab, then thickness. If it's a column, again the cross section size. So this is what we will do first to design the dimension of the member. Okay, that is the cross section of the member. Sometimes we can also refer it as deciding the concrete section. Okay, so this is how we decide. The first thing we do. Then second, we will determine the amount of reinforcement required. Amount of reinforcement required. That is called as area of steel. So this is what the design means. We are going to determine, or we are going to fix the cross section of the member. Then we are going to say how much amount of steel, what diameter of bar, how much quantity, at what spacing. This completely is called as design. Fine. So this is what. So once you design this, then you cannot simply go and give it to the engineer on the site or supervisor on the site. Because whatever you have done, is it correct or not, you have to check. So the second thing is checking. To check whether the section will perform satisfactorily. Okay. Second thing is in the design is to check whether the adapted section and the provided steel will perform safely and satisfactorily during the lifetime of the structure. So these two is together we call as design. Okay. So when you want to design RCC members, maybe it is beam, maybe it is slab, maybe it is column, maybe it is footing. Okay, we have to follow some methods, right? So methods of RCC design. or simply you can say methods of design. Okay, the first method is working stress method. First method is working stress method, WSM. Second method is ultimate load method. Third method is limit state design. Limit state method. Limit state method of design. Sometimes we call it as LSD or LSM, limit state method of design. So now we will see out of these two are still being practiced. This is the one which is currently we are using, but learning working stress method is also important. Why? We will coming to know it. So what is working stress method? What is working stress method? This method is the oldest method of RCC design. Okay, it is based on elastic theory. This is very important. Working stress method is based on elastic theory. So what is elastic theory? It is based on elastic theory we are telling, but what is elastic theory? That is, any material, whatever materials are involved in the RCC, they are following the direct stress strain relationship, linear relationship. Stress and strain are directly related, proportion. There is no limit. Up to the collapse load, they are elastic, right? Just a few minutes before I have said, okay, up to some point it was elastic. Beyond that, the material was deforming and it was reaching into the plastic range. But working stress method assumes that up to the collapse load, the material is going to behave elastic. Okay, so this is the first assumption. Stress and strain is directly proportional. So that was the first assumption they have made. Now based on this elastic theory, and assuming that the second assumption for them is, first assumption is stress is directly proportional to strain, that is Hooke's law, is applicable up to collapse point. Up to failure, stress is proportional to strain. What it means is the material is elastic in nature up to ultimate load or up to failure load. That was the first assumption made in working stress method. The second assumption is the bond between steel and concrete is perfect. Bond between steel and concrete is perfect. That means there is no loss of permissible stresses. This is another assumption. Okay, what is they are saying is there is no loss of permissible stresses. The bond, because when the stresses are transferred from concrete to steel or steel to concrete, there will be some losses in the stresses. So, but in this method is assuming that the bond between steel and concrete is perfect and there are no losses in the permissible stresses. The permissible stresses are not exceeding anywhere in the structure. Okay? Whatever is the combination of loads, worst combination of load, because when we design, we will have a combination of load. You will be learning in the due course, right? So we will design for a combination of dead load plus live load, dead load plus live load plus wind load, dead load plus live load plus wind load plus earthquake load. So there will be a combination of load. Whichever gives the worst combination, that combination will be taken for the design. So according to the second assumption of working stress method, the permissible stresses are not going or not reaching beyond its limit even under the worst combination of load. Okay. Then in this method, this is third one. In this method, the ultimate strength of concrete or permissible stress, I can say, of concrete as well as the permissible strength of steel, they are divided by the factor of safety. Okay, so the factor of safety factor of safety for concrete is taken as 3 and for steel the factor of safety is taken as 1.78. Here the factor of safety in this method, factor of safety is given to the stresses, permissible stresses in concrete and steel. Now the factor of safety is taken as 3 for concrete and 1.78 for steel. So what it means is you have yield ultimate strength, okay? Then permissible stresses in working stress method. Permissible stresses will be equal to ultimate stress divided by factor of safety. Okay, it will be 3 for concrete and 1.78. Fine. So again these permissible stresses will be less than the working stresses will be less than the permissible stresses. What do you mean by working stresses? When load comes on the member, some stresses will be developed. Those stresses will be less than the permissible stresses. So in working stress method, working stresses. What do you mean by working stresses? The stresses that are induced in the material due to the external loading. So those stresses will be less than or maximum it will be equal to permissible stresses. So in working stress method, factor of safety is given only to the stresses, right? So in that is this number you should remember. Factor of safety for concrete is 3 and for steel it is 1.78, right? So working stress method has got several disadvantages, drawbacks. That is why now we are not using this. Okay, it has got certain limitations or drawbacks. So what are the drawbacks? From the assumptions only we can say the drawbacks. The first is both steel and concrete behave elastically, which is highly impossible because concrete is a brittle material. Okay, if an assumption is made but it is not true, steel okay, steel can be elastic to certain extent, but concrete is a complete brittle material. So the first assumption is very wrong. Material concrete is totally inelastic. Concrete is inelastic. So this was the first drawback. Fine. Now coming to the second drawback, factor of safety. It is using the factor of safety to the permissible stresses, not to the load. That means we cannot arrive at the collapse load. If factor of safety is given for the loads, then we can say up to this load the member can be loaded, right? So but here factor of safety is given to the stresses. That is why we will not be able to arrive at the collapse load. So this is a drawback of working stress method. What is it? No factor of safety. No factor of safety to load or for loads. So this is a second drawback. Then third drawback is it does not use any factor of safety with respect to the load. Fine. So that was our second drawback. Third is it does not account for the shrinkage and creep. It does not account for shrinkage and creep. You know what is shrinkage and what is creep? Shrinkage is the reduction in volume with time, and creep is deformation under sustained load. Okay, when a member is subjected to same load for a long period of time, so after certain number of years it is going to it can be visible. That is called as creep. So this is a long time properties. So that nothing has been given with respect to the shrinkage and creep. So that is also a drawback. Fine. Then this method gives uneconomical section. This method gives uneconomical section because we are given the factor of safety only to the stress. The members, the section sizes will come big. Okay, you might have seen in olden constructions, okay, the walls, the beams, they were very big in size. So this method gives the uneconomical section. Uneconomical section. Okay, then next limit state IS 456 2000 suggests to use only limit state method design. Only where it is not possible to use limit state method, such type of designs shall be carried on using working stress method, right? For example, the design of water tanks, the design of bridges, okay, because no codal provisions are there for the design of structures, we have to use working stress method. Working stress method is the basic method. It is the basic method and its knowledge is essential for understanding the concepts of design.